A gang war claims 9 lives in a port in northern Ecuador.
Authorities say 30 heavily armed people peppered the opposing gang. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Randy Bernardino.
And I am Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
NGRRMC activates highest emergency protocol as tropical depression Amang lashes in Bicol region. Philippines and United States aim to complete roadmap security as tensions with China rise. Military airstrike in Myanmar claims hundreds of lives. Japan announces plans to develop long-range missiles. And Park Seo-joon makes Hollywood debut in The Marvels teaser.
Areas in Camarines Norte province experienced flooding due to heavy rainfalls brought by Typhoon Amang. Among the affected are the towns of Labo and Daet. Because of the non-stop rain by Typhoon Amang, some areas and barangays in Camarines North province experienced flooding since last night, particularly in Labo and Daet parts. In the last bulletin issued by Pagasa as of 11 this morning, the province of Camarines Norte is still under signal number 1. The provincial government suspended work and classes at all levels. Gale warnings have been raised and forced evacuations have been implemented in some islands in Jose Panganiban. Although Typhoon Amang first made landfall last night in Catanduanes province, no major damage has been reported. Schools and government offices are still suspended throughout the province. Storm signal number 1 is still up in the entire province of Catanduanes. The provincial government suspends all class levels in schools and government offices throughout the province. No serious damage was reported. While at the height of the storm, 2 illegal loggers were caught at the checkpoint by the Virac MPS Police, led by Police Senior Master Sergeant Nestor Abraham Venus. The illegal loggers allegedly came from Virac on the way to Palta and did not stop at the checkpoint. The police chased them and it was found that they were carrying undocumented goods. In Tagkayawan, Quezon, rivers were overflowed due to the non-stop rain of Typhoon Amang. Rescue teams remain alert to respond quickly. Some barangays in Tagkayawan, Quezon are experiencing flooding caused by Typhoon Amang. According to Tagkayawan DRRMO, water levels in different barangays have increased because of the continuous rainfall. Meanwhile, the local government teams up with PNP, the Army, and BFP to evacuate people. Camarines Sur experienced extensive flooding caused by Typhoon Amang. Rivers and streams overflowed in the area. Roads are flooded and creeks are almost overflowing in some places in Camarines Sur due to non-resistant rainfalls this day. In Naga City, water is overflowing from the bridge of Concepcion Pequeña Main Road into several creeks in the area. National Highway in the town of San Fernando in Camarines Sur has also been flooded. Camarines Sur was raised to orange rainfall warning due to heavy rainfall, threatening severe flooding and landslides. According to the Pagasa report, up to 50 millimeters to 100 millimeters of rain could pour in the province until Saturday. Evacuation has been done in some areas in the province, especially residents who live in low-lying areas. Meanwhile, based on OCD Bicol data, 394 passengers from Apatong, Catanduanes are stranded at Tabaco City Port in Albay, while 90 vehicles are also stranded at Andaya Highway in Del Gallego, Camarines Sur, after LTO suspends land vehicle travel to Catanduanes, Masbate, and Visayas.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council raises the highest protocol in areas affected by Tropical Depression Amang. JD Mahinay tells us more.
The landfall of Tropical Depression Amang has brought adverse effects to the country. The National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, or NDRRMC, applied its Charlie Protocol in regions 4A, 5, and 8 due to Tropical Depression Amang. Under the Charlie Protocol, which is the highest at the emergency level, NDRRMC will send consistent warnings and travel advisories to the affected areas. The Naval Forces Southern Luzon, or NFSL, are on standby for deployment in preparation for possible disaster rescues. Director Regiel G. Cataran says the NFSL will provide aid in delivering relief goods and in conducting evacuations. The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, reports since 8 in the morning, about 4,500 passengers got stranded in Bicol, Eastern Visayas, and Southern Tagalog regions. PCG adds 11 ships, 4 boats, and 732 rolling cargoes canceled their travels. Domestic flights were also canceled due to heavy rains brought by Tropical Depression Amang. Manila National Airport Authority suspended Cebu Pacific's afternoon flight from Manila to Virac Catanduanes and vice versa. This includes Cebgo's flight from Manila to Naga and likewise. Meanwhile, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, prepared approximately 40,000 family food packs as relief in areas in Eastern Visayas. DSWD also prepared 14,492 non-food items, amounting to 20.2 million pesos. JD Mahinay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Pag-asa says Tropical Depression Amang maintained its strength as it continues to move slowly in northwestward direction. Based on available data, the Weather Disturbances Center was estimated over the coastal waters of Lagonoy, Camarines Sur. Amang carries maximum sustained winds of 45 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 55 kilometers per hour. Bicol Region, Laguna, Quezon, Rizal, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, and Aurora will experience rains with gusty winds. Meanwhile, Amang will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in Metro Manila, Cagayan Valley, the rest of Luzon, and some parts of Visayas. Pag-asa also warns of possible flash floods or landslides during severe thunderstorms.
Top defense and diplomatic officials from the United States and the Philippines agreed to complete a roadmap to cover the former security assistance over the next 5 to 10 years. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the agreement was made during a 2+2 ministerial dialogue between the two countries. Austin further says they discussed a delivery of priority defense platforms, including radars, drones, military transport aircraft, coastal and air defense systems. Austin admits they also discussed concerns over China's increasing assertiveness. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also attended the dialogue. Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo asserts the Philippines and the United States vows to redouble their commitment to modernization. He says the country's alliance with the U.S. plays a stronger role in preserving international law and order.
China insists it has indisputable sovereignty over the islands in the South China Sea and the adjacent waters. Beijing's statement is a response to the United States and Philippines' joint statement concerning roadmap security. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin claims the South China Sea arbitration ruling severely violates international law. He also asserts the UNCLOS is illegal and void.
首先，我们要指出的是，中方对美菲发布的联合声明表示严正关切和强烈不满。中国对南海诸岛及其附近海域拥有无可争议的主权。美菲声明歪曲抹黑中方正当合法海上执法活动，甚至无中生有对中方进行造谣污蔑，中方坚决反对。
Wang says China will resolve maritime disputes through talks and negotiation. Yet he vows Xi Jinping government will firmly protect their territorial sovereignty, maritime rights, and interests.
The Department of Health says the general population can now receive second booster shots against COVID-19. Health Officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergere says they are only waiting for the release of implementing guidelines before the rollout of the boosters. Vergere says healthy adults aged 18 and above can receive second booster shots against COVID-19. Currently, only health workers, persons aged 50 years old and above, and those with underlying conditions are allowed to receive the second booster dose.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, mental health cases have increased. In the report of the U.S. Aid for International Development Renew Health Project, the cases of mental health hit 3.6 million in 2021. And for Dr. Bernadette Manalo of St. Luke's Medical Center, the pandemic has had a great effect on mental health. People felt anxiety and depression more. She said that those who usually have mental health problems are among the younger and the elderly, and that a person experiencing extreme sadness and worry could have psychological problems. The health expert added that people experiencing depression or anxiety should always have someone to talk to. Meanwhile, to prevent the increase of mental health cases, the DOH previously offered Lusog Isip app. The app includes materials of workbooks, exercises, audio guides, journaling, mood tracking, and self-care reminders that can be used.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, estimates that the income loss of fishermen and businesses in Oriental Mindoro has reached 338 million pesos as a result of the oil spill from the sinking of MT Princess Empress. During an oil spill interagency committee meeting at the Department of Justice, Mark Lawrence Romero of the National Fisheries Laboratory Division of BFAR says this is only an initial estimate and they are still waiting for the complete analysis of contaminants in fish and other aquaculture species. Meanwhile, Attorney Janice Regoso Pamintuan of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the Pollution Adjudication Board reports that 92 out of 131 sampling stations have exceeded the water quality guidelines. They are still awaiting results from Region 4A, especially in Tinloy, Lobo, and Mabini in Batangas. Earlier, Philippine Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Artemio Abu announced that the oil spill had been controlled.
The lower house of Congress is investigating the cover-up of 990 kilos of shabu involving Police Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo. House Committee Congressman Robert Ace Barber states that the lower house will probe the huge illegal drug operation concerning the Philippine National Police, or PNP. Barber says the investigation is relevant to the bill amending the current dangerous drugs law. If amended, the law would severely punish government officials and personnel who are protectors of illegal drug syndicates. Based on initial reports, some high-ranking officials of the PNP Drug Enforcement Group, or PDEG, are under examination by the Special Investigation Task Group of the National Police Commission.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, has announced that it will allow the filing of the Certificate of Candidacy, or COC, in malls for the 2023 Barangay Sangguniang Kabataang Elections, or BSKE. COMELEC spokesperson Attorney John Rex Laudianco says this applies to districts where the COMELEC offices are too small. He adds that if there are no malls nearby, the filing may also be done in the nearest public gymnasium. As to why COMELEC cannot automate COC filings, Laudianco explains the law requires personal filing. He reminds that the period for COC filing for BSKE is from August 26 up to September 2. Coming up, hundreds feared dead after military airstrike in Myanmar. Taiwan's foreign minister slams China's recent drills. And the United States gives $2.7 billion to 9/11 victims. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Hi! Ito po si Isko Moreno.
Lahat ng mga tao.
Guest po ko sa Sabado, 11 a.m. at kakainin natin ang mga pagkaing pampahaba ng buhay. Dito lamang sa Lutong Dasa. See you! Chichana!
Arnel, hindi ako mapaghiganting tao. Kapitan, Mary, Sebastian.
Ay, sige,
Talaga ng mga Barangay Miranda. Ang dami pagkain na binigay sa akin. Libre gupit pa.
At sa usap,
Bakit nyo kami sinusundan?
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Assailants shot and killed 9 people in northern Ecuador, close to the Colombian border on Tuesday. Dozens of attackers arrived in boats and cars at a small port in Esmeraldas province and then opened fire. Interior Minister Juan Zapata said that the attack was carried out by 30 heavily armed people and was related to a fight between gangs. Zapata said there were between 1,500 and 2,000 people in the port at the time of the morning shooting. The attack happened because fishermen preferred the security of one criminal organization and were targeted by another in retaliation. 7 bodies were recovered from the port and 2 more from a nearby health center. Impoverished Esmeraldas province has been under a state of emergency since March 3 due to high levels of crime and violence. Esmeraldas is considered by authorities to be one of the places with the highest levels of crime in the country.
Myanmar's military junta has confirmed a deadly airstrike on a village in the country's center. Junta spokesman Zhao Mingtun said that there was a People's Defense Force office opening ceremony in the morning at Pazi-G village, where the airstrikes happened. He said some of the dead were anti-coup fighters and some could be civilians. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk was horrified by the deadly airstrikes, whose victims included school children performing dances. Global body calling for those responsible to be brought to justice. The death toll from the morning strike remains unclear, and at least 50 fatalities and dozens of injuries were reported. Before military aircraft strafed Pazi-G village, scores of locals had gathered to mark the opening of a local People's Defense Force office. Sagaing region has put up some of the fiercest resistance to the military's rule, with intense fighting raging for months.
Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu slams China's recent drills, warning Beijing seems to gear to launch a war against Taipei. U.S. intelligence assessment claims that Chinese leader Xi Jinping instructed his military to be prepared by 2027. Wu says Taiwan simply needs to get ready. He also asserts Chinese leaders will think twice before they use force against Taiwan. Meanwhile, Taiwan's transport ministry announced China has set up a brief no-fly zone north of the island for April 16 due to space activities. The restrictions will be in place for just 27 minutes from 9:30 a.m. to 9:57 a.m. on Sunday. Local reports say the no-fly zone does not appear to be linked to the drills.
Parliament Speaker Yu Si-kun said comments by French President Emmanuel Macron on Taiwan are puzzling. Macron recently warned against being drawn to Taiwan's crisis due to American rhythm and a Chinese overreaction. He also called for the European Union to reduce its dependence on the United States. China praised Macron's comments, saying Beijing and Paris reached an important consensus on new initiatives. China said it was not also surprised when Macron's comments attracted some criticism, particularly from the United States.
Japan reveals its plans to develop and build an array of advanced long-range missiles. The Japanese Defense Ministry aims to bolster its defenses amid increasing tensions with China. The ministry says it had signed contracts with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to develop and mass-produce the weapons under a plan extending to 2027.
Analysts say the battle between China and the United States has reached the African region. Media reports show from 2007 to 2020, Washington financed roughly $14 billion worth of projects in Africa, whereas China invested $120 billion. Chinese lenders constitute 12% of Africa's private and public external debt, but the United States plans to spend nearly $1 billion on empowering African businesswomen. Experts say Washington is interested in enlarging its influence in Africa as tensions and competition with China are peaking in East Asia. However, reports claim African entrepreneurs prefer Chinese investors to Americans. China, on the other hand, claims the United States is the largest shareholder of the World Bank and IMF. Beijing says Washington has a responsibility to participate in solving Africa's debt problems. The reasons? African businesses dislike bureaucracy. Some say U.S. public lending institutions are also slower. But analysts say United States wishes to fight the Chinese economic dominance in Africa. Records show nearly $500 million will be devoted to closing gender digital divide. People in Africa are aware of China and the United States' presence as investors in Africa. For experts, this may also affect East Asia's future as tensions between the two nations continue to rise.
Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov says Wagner mercenaries continue fighting to capture blocks of the central part of Bakhmut. He says they are pushing Ukrainian troops to the western outskirts of the settlement. The statement comes after Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin claimed the group had, in a legal sense, captured Bakhmut. This because he said it had taken control of City Hall. Prigozhin, an ally of President Vladimir Putin, has for months been involved in a power struggle with the defense ministry. Prigozhin has claimed battlefield victories ahead of Russia's army. He also accuses the military of not sharing ammunition with his forces.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denounces Russian beasts as a video supposedly showing the decapitation of a Ukrainian prisoner of war surfaces on social media.
Як легко ці звірі вбивають. Це відео страти українського полоненого. Світ повинен бачити. Це відео Росії, якою вона є. Що це за істоти? Для них немає людей. Син, брат, чоловік, чиясь дитина. Це відео Росії, яка намагається зробити саме це новою нормою. Таку звичку – знищувати життя.
The European Union pledges to hold war criminals accountable for the beheading.
By its obligation under international humanitarian law and ensure that prisoners of war are treated humanly and in all circumstances in accordance with the Geneva Conventions, and that their lives are not endangered. And again, I would reiterate, or the EU reiterates, its firm commitment to holding to account all perpetrators and accomplices of war crimes committed in connection with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov questioned the authenticity of the footage, saying it needs to be verified.
Moscow is proposing a law that would bar conscripts from being sent to fight outside the country's borders. The State Duma, Russia's lower house of parliament, passed rules that would prevent anyone called up to fight in Ukraine from leaving. This as Russia amasses troops along Ukraine's border. Under the bill, the Russians called up would immediately be unauthorized to leave the country. The strengthening of the conscription rules comes against the backdrop of a much wider suppression on civil liberties in Russia. In the past, Russians could avoid conscription by dodging receipt of the call-up notice. The progress of the new draft was rushed. Only the day before, the new measure's specifics were disclosed, and several deputies said that they were unable to read the proposed legislation before voting. It is still President Vladimir Putin's decision to put the final measure and sign the new draft law.
In the U.S., 9/11 victims, certain spouses and their children will receive compensation totaling $2.7 billion. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad reports.
In the coming weeks, the U.S. Victims of State-Sponsored Terrorism Fund, or the fund, will be giving a total of $2.7 billion to over 5,300 victims of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Certain spouses and children of the victims of the 9/11 attacks will be given compensations as well. According to the Justice Department's Criminal Division, the fund has collected more than $2 billion in deposits from forfeiture proceeds, penalties, and fines. This arising from violations of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the Trading with the Enemy Act. The fund was established by the U.S. Congress in 2015. It has paid more than $3.3 billion to victims in 4 rounds of distributions. The payments announced are in addition to the said distributions. The number of eligible claimants has grown from over 2,000 in 2017 to over 15,500 today. Of those, over 12,100 claimants are 9/11 victims and their family members. Over 3,600 claimants have claims related to the other acts of international state-sponsored terrorism. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Iglesia ni Cristo's Care for Humanity provides aid for Turkish earthquake victims. In Chile, Congress approves 40-hour work week bill. And France announces major funding to fight forest fires. Please stay tuned. We've got more stories when Mata ng Agila International comes back.
Abangan sa April 12, Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi sa Counterpoint. Sa tingin mo ba yung mga batas natin, mga ordinansa, ay sapat?
Sapat po, pero ang problema po natin, yung implementation.
First, an exclusive interview with the former National Security Advisor General Hermogenes Esperon Jr.
Sa tingin ko, tama naman na siguro mag-contribute din ang mga nasa serbisyo. Pero kung sino na yung hindi nagko-contribute dati, ay huwag mo nang galawin yun.
Sa Net 25.
Ikaw ba, nakakatulog ka ng mahusay nung nasa cabinet tayo?
Hindi. Natutulog ako sa cabinet meeting.
Yun.
The Turkish government continues its call for aid to be provided for victims of the catastrophic earthquake that impacted thousands of lives in Turkey. And in Ottawa, Canada, one organization known for its humanitarian efforts throughout the world was commended for the immediate response to the call for aid. Ricky Mathay reports.
The FI1 Foundation, led by Executive Minister Brother Eduardo Manalo, and the Church of Christ Charitable Arm continues its outreach programs as we have been informed. At such times of tragedy, your kind contribution and valuable support are deeply appreciated. Thanking you once again.
Dr. Yusuf Turan Jeytinur, Chargé d'Affaires and Deputy Ambassador of the Embassy of Turkey, commended Executive Minister of the Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, and the FYM Foundation for the rapid response in extending help to families in Turkey who were affected by the devastation. Claiming over 50,000 lives and thousands of infrastructure in a catastrophic ruin, a tragic event not seen in over 80 years. But in an urgent call to action, the Turkish Association of Canada called for solidarity in the Ottawa community to help displaced victims. Along with the City of Ottawa and the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey, the Iglesia ni Cristo, known for its humanitarian efforts, quickly responded and stepped up to help. Boxes filled with blankets, hygiene products, and essential items, these donations were put together by INC volunteers in a Care for Humanity event through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, the volunteering arm of Iglesia ni Cristo. These boxes were shipped promptly to families affected by the devastation in Turkey.
Actually, our embassy and our consulate general in Montreal and Toronto, also in Vancouver, they are coordinating all transactions,
It's very important to do this activity. The Brethren has really supported, and that was really a blessing that they showed their love and care for the people, victims in Turkey.
I think it will take a long time to recover, to heal. I am so grateful to see you, FYM organization, foundation in here. God bless you guys.
With the help and mercy of our Lord God and through the inspiration of our dearest executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, the brethren responded quickly by giving out care packages such as blankets, hygienic products, because what moves us is what our dear brother taught unto us from the Bible, that whenever we possibly can, we should do good to those who need it.
We thank you for their thoughtful gesture, time and efforts. It is deeply appreciated, and it took place at a time that really mattered the most. And please accept this as the token of our appreciation, and with our sincere thanks again.
Another recognition was also extended by the City Mayor of Ottawa, commending the efforts of the FYM Foundation. These special recognitions were a direct result of the continuous humanitarian efforts of Iglesia ni Cristo, motivated by faith and compassion.
We promise that we will continue to work hand in hand through the leadership of our executive minister in extending help to our fellow men in need.
In times of adversity, it can be easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But in these moments, the power of faith and love inspires the Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ members, into action to help those in need. A reflection of the ongoing love and concern of the Executive Minister of the Church of Christ, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, that even in the darkest of times, there is hope. Ricky Mathay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
U.S. President Joe Biden visits Ireland for the 25th anniversary of the Belfast Agreement. Born of Irish descent, his trip to the country is not just of great political importance, but one of personal significance as well. To tell us why, here's Prince Limonero.
In his visit to Northern Ireland, U.S. President Joe Biden joins in commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Belfast Agreement, which ended decades of sectarian violence in Northern Ireland known as the Troubles. The agreement was largely brokered by the United States, with significant investment from Democrats like Bill Clinton and Senator George Mitchell. Biden's view of American foreign policy as a force for good is currently being tested by isolationist strain among Republicans. As a proponent of diplomacy and multilateralism, he is determined to use his trip to Ireland as a reminder of what sustained diplomacy can yield. The trip almost didn't happen due to a trade dispute between the UK and the European Union. After months of negotiations, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak struck a deal in February, paving the way for Biden's visit. During his trip, Biden is meeting with Irish leaders, addressing Parliament, and delivering a speech in front of St. Murdoch's Cathedral in Northwest Ireland. His son Hunter and sister Valerie are accompanying him on the trip. President's personal connection to Ireland runs deep. His great-great-grandfather, Edward Blewett, immigrated from Ireland to the United States during the famine in the 1840s. Biden has visited Ireland several times over the years, and his Irish heritage plays a significant role in shaping his worldview. Overall, Ireland holds immense personal and political significance to President Biden, and his visit to the country serves as a commemoration of the Belfast Agreement and a reminder of the importance of diplomacy in American foreign policy. Prince Limonero for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Tens of thousands of National Health Service or NHS doctors in the United Kingdom began a 4-day strike on April 11th in a dispute over pay. The doctors' union, called the British Medical Association, or BMA, demands a 35% pay raise to bring junior doctor pay back to 2008 levels. UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock has called the demand unreasonable. The strike could potentially postpone an estimated 350,000 appointments and disrupt patient care across the country when NHS is already stretched to its limits due to the ongoing pandemic. The BMA argues or urges the government to step in and resolve the dispute quickly. But the government has been adamant that it will not meet the doctors' demands, arguing that it would be too expensive. Patient groups have expressed concern that the disruption could put additional strain on the already overstretched healthcare system. The union argues that junior doctors' pay has fallen behind that of other professions and that a pay raise is necessary to retain and attract doctors to the NHS as they face chronic underfunding, staff shortages, and increasing demand for services. The BMA calls for a comprehensive review of the NHS to address these issues and ensure that it is adequately funded and staffed to meet the needs of patients.
U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas meets with foreign ministers of Panama, Yanaina Tewani, and Colombia, Alvaro Leiva. This as migrants crossing the Darien jungle bordering the two countries reaches new records. In Panama City, Mayorkas says those seeking to come to the U.S. should take advantage of the safe, orderly, and legal pathways presented to them.
The United States has significantly increased those pathways, as have our partners, and we seek to continue to expand them as an alternative to the dangerous journey that too many take.
The Panamanian National Migration System says some 100,000 people have crossed the Darien jungle this year on their way to the U.S. This number is 6 times more than the same period last year.
A large group of migrants gathers at the U.S.-Mexico border crossing bridge in Mexico's Ciudad Juarez. They are hoping to enter the United States. A rumor has spread that the crossing restrictions imposed under Title 42 were to be lifted. The restrictions were implemented under Donald Trump's administration, apparently as a health measure to reduce the flow of people during the COVID-19 pandemic. In response to the big crowds, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection members temporarily closed the area to pedestrians and vehicles. The crossing reopened hours later without incident.
At least 10 people are dead and another 25 are injured after a bus falls into a river in Peru. Authorities report the bus was on its way to Lima, but another vehicle crashed into it, causing it to plunge into the Rimac River. Sources say the bus was carrying about 60 passengers, including 6 minors, 3 of whom were injured, with 1 admitted to hospital. Local police are investigating the cause of the accident.
In Chile, Congress passes new legislation to reduce the initial working hours from 45 to 40 a week. The bill was passed in the lower house of Chile's Congress, with votes resulting from a margin of 127 to 14. This is to improve workers' quality of living and rights. Chile is now paving its way to join Latin American countries like Ecuador and Venezuela with workloads of 40 and 35 hours weekly, respectively. However, the bill does not cover workers employed in informal sectors. President Gabriel Boric is expected to sign the bill into law.
United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres appeals for significant international support for Somalia. The country is battling a desperate humanitarian crisis caused by a perfect storm of drought and protracted armed conflict. During a press conference with President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in Mogadishu, Guterres says that he is on a visit of solidarity to the troubled Horn of the African nation. 5 million people in Somalia are facing high levels of food insecurity.
We have 6 million people in need of assistance. We have launched an appeal to the international community. Only 15% of that appeal has been funded until now. The international community has been absent-minded in relation to the drama of the people of Somalia. It's time to look seriously into these people that is suffering too much.
Somalia's worst drought in decades has driven many to the brink of famine. Meanwhile, the government is also engaged in a major offensive to quell a bloody Islamist insurgency.
The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, slightly lowers its outlook for the global economy. This while predicting that most countries will avoid a recession this year despite economic worries and geopolitical tension. IMF Chief Economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas says the global economy remains on track for a gradual recovery from the pandemic and Russia's war in Ukraine. He says China's reopened economy is rebounding strongly. Gourinchas says supply chain disruptions are unwinding while dislocations to energy and food markets caused by the war are receding. He says the massive and synchronized tightening of monetary policy by most central banks is starting to bring inflation back towards its target.
First, inflation is much stickier than anticipated, even a few months ago. While global inflation has declined, this reflects mostly the sharp reversal in energy and food prices. But core inflation, excluding energy and food prices, has still not peaked in many countries. It is expected to decline to 6.2% this year, still well above target.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says there remains considerable room for improvement in the global debt restructuring process. Her comments come as central bankers, finance ministers, and other participants gather in Washington for the International Monetary Fund and World Bank spring meetings. Debt restructuring is among important topics on the agenda.
More than half of all low-income countries are near or in debt distress. We know that the impacts of debt crises do not respect boundaries. They can have cascading effects on the global economy. In the past few weeks, we have shown that concerted engagement can result in breakthroughs. We are encouraged that China has agreed to provide specific and credible financing assurances in the Sri Lanka case. This has enabled the IMF to move forward with a financial support and economic reform program.
As global growth slows, the World Bank warns that the outlook is especially tough for the poorest economies, those which grapple with sluggish growth driven by heavy debt burdens and weak investment.
France will announce a large amount of funding to fight forest fires. This as the country's ministers visit the airbase of Cazo in Gironde. Minister of Interior Gérald Darmanin is presenting a plan in Gironde to combat forest fires. The plan includes 7.6 million euros allocated to prevent forest fires and for environmental rehabilitation. Recently, La Teste de Bouche in Gironde had 7,000 hectares of forest diminished to ashes. The region was heavily impacted by the devastating fires of summer 2022. With the presence of other French ministers, Darmanin will present a battery of measures for the summer of 2023. The protocol will be signed at Airbase 120 in Cazo. The risk of fire is particularly feared after a period of drought that hit France. Coming right up, Michael Jordan's sneakers set to be sold for $2.2 million. South Korean actor Park Seo-joon makes Hollywood debut in the new The Marvels teaser. And tourists enjoy China's sea of pineapples. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment. Matandang Agila International will be back.
Netizens, for more kada umaga updates, i-click lamang ang subscribe button at i-follow ang Net25 social media pages at Net25TV. Okay?
Hi! Ito po si Isko Moreno.
Lahat ng mga tao.
Guest po ko sa Sabado, 11 a.m. at kakainin natin ang mga pagkain pampahaba ng buhay. Dito lamang sa Lutong Dasa. See you! Chichana!
A new optical imaging technique called nanoplasmonic imaging dramatically advances the study of cell function and communication. Researchers at the University of Geneva and the Bio-Nanophotonic Systems Laboratory have developed an innovative way of looking at cells in 4D or a four-dimensional format. This groundbreaking optical imaging to observe individual cells in an ultra-detailed view could very well aid in the development of pharmaceutical drugs and research and could help create cancer treatments and other medical therapies. Unprecedented 4D view allows researchers to see what is going on inside a live cell at a granular level, which provides never-before-seen insight into cellular processes that happen during an infection.
The Premier League title race blows open as Arsenal drops points against Liverpool. In London, United Kingdom, Keith Dimabuyu reports.
Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta bemoaned the Gunners' lack of ruthlessness as they surrendered a 2-goal lead in a pulsating 2-2 draw at Liverpool on Sunday to blow the Premier League title race wide open. Arteta's men edged 6 points ahead of Manchester City at the top of the table, but the defending champions now have the destiny of the title in their own hands. City have a game in hand and host the Gunners at the Etihad later this month. Goals from Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus appear to have Arsenal cruising towards an 8th consecutive league win, but Mohamed Salah pulled a goal back before halftime to spark a Liverpool fight back. Jurgen Klopp's men then missed a series of chances to complete the comeback as Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale salvaged a point for his side. Firmino finally made Liverpool's pressure count when he headed home Trent Alexander-Arnold's cross to set up a quad-strand finish. Salah blazed over a glorious chance before Ramsdale made remarkable saves from the Egyptian and Ibrahima Konate to ensure Arsenal escaped just with a point. Liverpool remained down in 8th, 12 points adrift of the top 4. From the United Kingdom, this is Keith Dimabuyu for Mathalang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A pair of Air Jordan 13s worn by basketball legend Michael Jordan during Game 2 of the 1998 NBA Finals set a record price at an auction at Sotheby's. The pair of sneakers is set to be sold at $2.2 million. Famously featured in Jordan's Netflix documentary, The Last Dance, the 25-year-old shoe brought Jordan to his 6th and final championship title. Bram Watchter of Sotheby's notes the durability of the sneakers. Jordan autographed the black and red pair with a silver marker. The pair is displayed inside a secure transparent glass box.
In spite of negative reviews, the new Super Mario Bros. Movie has broken box office records. The movie scored the most successful global opening of all time for an animated film, with $377 million around the world in its first 5 days on release. It overtook the previous record of $358 million held by Frozen 2. Many fans seem to disagree with the 56% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, eclipsed by the 96% audience score. The film broke other records, including the best ever opening for a movie based on a video game. Chris Pratt voiced the mustached Italian plumber Mario, Charlie Day as his brother Luigi, Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, and Jack Black as the fire-breathing villain Bowser. The Super Mario Bros. Movie will premiere in the Philippines on April 19.
South Korean actor Park Seo-joon makes his Hollywood debut in the newly released trailer of The Marvels. Even though he appears for a second, many K-drama fans are actively waiting for the actor's part in the movie. In the trailer, Seo-joon appears wearing battle armor, charging at its enemies. Many theorize that Seo-joon's role has the possibility to be the Aladna royalty Prince Yan. Aladna is a planet where its residents can only communicate through a song. However, Seo-joon is listed last in the casting lineup, prompting that he'll unlikely have a significant role in the movie. The Marvels is scheduled to be in theaters on November 10. Drone footage reveals Sichuan's famous sea of pineapples, with workers harvesting the fruit. Tourists enjoy the sweet taste and smell of the pineapple plantation. Sichuan produces around 700,000 tons of pineapples. 1/3 of it is sold in China. Local government lauds the workers for their high-quality development of the pineapple sector.
For your midweek motivation, here's a quote from American football player Paul Bryant. It's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters.
Because without real preparation, don't even aspire to win.
Yes, it's about having that winning mentality. Whatever problems you face, whatever tests, board exam, bar exam.
That's right.
Yes.
And with that mentality, you should have hard work. You should work hard to achieve winning or victory.
Yes, always keep that in mind. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Randy Bernardino.
And I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. Stay tuned for tonight's episode of Counterpoint with Attorney Salvador Panelo and former National Security Advisor General Hermogenes Esperon Jr. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point. For watching Mata ng Agila International. To receive more trusted, connected, and on-point news, follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.